So there's this comic. You might have seen it, you might not. It's about what the internet calls sealioning, and is the source of a particular label given to a particular group of people. In order to talk about the comic's influence, we must talk about the comic itself first. To get right to the point, I think the comic is pretty bad. It's written in such a way that deciphering its purpose or artistic reasoning is just plain difficult. It begins with a human making an unprompted, aggressive, and derogatory remark toward a demographic. A member of that demographic, a sea lion, overhears and demands to know the reasoning behind the derogatory remark. There is some arguing wherein the sea lion attempts to be reasonable in asking pursuant questions, but the human is stubborn in their refusal. Eventually, the sea lion commits breaches of personal space, apparently not understanding he's unwanted until he is told to leave. It is nearly impossible, I think, to find a protagonist here, but my reading of the comic was nonetheless as follows. A rather mean-spirited person made a hateful and prejudiced remark. They refused to elaborate on their beliefs and then repeatedly grew frustrated with the individual they had just insulted, and the sea lion is painted as obnoxious. Prejudice wins, and we are meant to side with the human in this encounter. You can understand why I would find that to be troubling. The sea lion's behaviors are commonly referred to as sea lioning. What is most baffling to me is that the human just doesn't simply apologize for making an unprompted, hateful comment. And yes, the sea lion does invade the human's home, but how are we meant to parse this? People who disagree with you do not generally follow you home in real life unless you live with them. And if the home in this instance is meant to represent an internet space rather than a physical one, blocking someone is a very effective means to no longer deal with their presence. Did the human simply forget to lock the door? The human just feels completely empty of rationality or compassion for all of these reasons. And yes, I am aware that the author has his own thoughts on the comic and attempted to correct perceptions on it. But I think this is absolute folly. The comic's meaning was already decided upon by the internet at large, and whichever camp you happen to be in, the author's intention has no bearing on the words actually written in the panels or how they're portrayed. I also find it particularly insulting that the author says he supposes certain readings are accurate. This effectively places blame on the reader rather than his own conveyance. Now that we've established the comic itself and my view of it, let's talk about its effect on internet culture. Accusing someone of sea lioning has become a common defense. A defense against what, exactly? In my experience, a defense against genuine curiosity and introspection. Accusing a person of sea lioning, I believe, is just an excuse not to think about oneself or one's beliefs. If someone makes a prejudiced, cruel, or otherwise hurtful or ignorant remark, and you ask genuine, honest questions about their thoughts and reasoning, there is a non-zero chance you will be accused of sea lioning. And here's the thing. Accusing someone of sea lioning is effective. It shuts down conversation and establishes an echo chamber. All questions of a belief's integrity are now perfectly shielded against because someone swiftly assigned you a catchy label. This, in essence, is just slapping a negative association on rationality, curiosity, and intellectual honesty. And yes, I'm aware that many people will claim sea lioning is done in bad faith. But not only is bad faith seen nowhere in the original comic, but also rarely seen in real life as well. And that's because bad faith is very hard to genuinely prove. If you make a statement and someone asks earnestly after that statement's rationale, who are you to say their questions are dishonest? Assigning someone the sea lioning label is simply assuming negative things of them without evidence, and it demonstrates an unwillingness to participate in discussion about those preconceived biases. In essence, sea lioning is an all but useless label if our goal is self-reflection and honesty. But it is a perfectly serviceable label if we want to hide from introspective thought, or we are deathly allergic to examining our own beliefs. The reason humans use labels is to simplify things, to make them easier for us to immediately process so that we don't have to spend excess energy contemplating them. But there are some things we should have to contemplate, not only for our own good, but the good of those around us. It is for that reason that simplifying people by way of derogatory labels based on their ideology is, well, bad. It's plainly a shortcut in a place shortcuts don't belong. There is no shortcut to being a good person, and there is no shortcut to being a thoughtful person. If you care about those things, you inevitably must think about the way you think, and why you think that way. And if you're, say, simply not in the mood to introspect, you just don't wanna, well, no one can make you. That is your right. But you shouldn't also defame and devalue others for trying to learn more about you, themselves, and the world around them. Sea lioning is a dumb concept, which provides little benefit that could not be equally accomplished with a block button, and its negative ramifications are quite noticeable. We shouldn't be encouraging willful ignorance, even if the folks asking questions bother us sometimes.